Hello and welcome to another episode of Mercurial Gems. I'm Vi.
I'm Jen.
And today we are going to be continuing our Pluto generation series. We are going to be going over Pluto Taurus and Pluto Aries because we have finally reached the point in our series where we don't really have anyone who can give us lived experience. So we're mostly looking at historical context for both of these. So we figured we might as well just lump them both together. So with that being said, do you want to explain Pluto to anyone who's maybe just joining us in this video?
Yeah, so Pluto holds the extremes of the signs that it finds itself in. And Pluto moves at different paces, so it lumps us into these generational groups. So we will have the same Pluto sign as our peers, as we've shared in all of the videos. And yeah, the orbit of Pluto is very fascinating to kind of watch and what the generational themes were. But overall, Pluto's going to show an area of life where we go through a lot of rebirth energy, where we really meet the bigger shadows and extremes of the sign. And so talking about Pluto Aries, which we'll start with, that is the very first sign of the zodiac. Aries is the archetype really kind of set in this independent nature. It holds like this childlike sort of excitement behind it because Aries really acts first and then thinks later. It has that just like, I'm feeling something, I'm gonna go after it. It is a cardinal sign. It launches towards stuff, and it's often associated with even like a warrior-like energy. It has that fighting, passionate spirit. And when we look to Pluto Aries, the last time we had it in that sign was from 1822 to 1852. And we won't have it again until 2068 to 2097. So we definitely had to go through the historical records. There's no interview to speak to really Pluto Aries. And honestly, we even tried to look up some celebrities, but it's beyond what we can.
On us. That's a whole other rabbit hole to give you a brief explanation.
But we have loved going through this Pluto series, talking about some of the history, because the history quite literally speaks to the extremes. A lot of the time, what we document is the bigger moments. And so it always typically holds a little of the Plutonian up and downs.
Especially for anyone who is Pluto Scorpio or younger. Like, we didn't have access to information like we do now way back then. So like, I think that's even crazier for what ends up getting documented, because like news wasn't as
held.
Like it had an impact of some form.
Yeah.
You'll see why a quotation in a little bit.
Yeah, and the other thing I do want to share, if we've talked through this entire series about the alchemy process of Pluto, because we really believe that Pluto is an area of life you really want to pay attention to. In evolutionary astrology, there's huge weight to Pluto, figuring out how to alchemize the opposite sign. So for Pluto Aries, that is Pluto Libra. We actually had the Pluto Libra generation, which we've already done an episode for. So that was really the mirror for Pluto Aries to be able to look at itself. And then we had the squares from Aries, which would have been Pluto Cancer's generation and Pluto Capricorn, which we have good documentation on. So a whole Pluto cycle within the cardinal signs has been like lived through. We just don't really have this full viewpoint of Pluto Aries, but the history is very interesting. So starting in 1822, we had the last public whipping, which just felt Aries. Aries violence.
Warrior energy.
Yes. Which, thank goodness, what a good start. We decided not to do that. Good behavior, Aries. In 1830, we had the Oregon Trail, which was very utilized for settlers to migrate between different areas. That also held a lot of Aries, like it was an expansion point for people to initiate starting a new life for themselves, which felt...
So Oregon Trail fact, a lot of people died of dysentery from these impulsive travels. So it kind of adds an extra layer.
And so then we also see so much violence that honestly the news at this time was very hard to even read. We had so much me first selfish energy, which was leading to the Indian Removal Act in 1830. There was so much violence to indigenous people woven throughout this entire time frame. There was something called The Liberator, published in 1831, which The Liberator felt very Aries to me.
I am the liberator.
I can do it all. Try to stop an Aries. Let us know how that goes. And then, 1832, we had actually a Supreme Court ruling that ruled in favor of the Cherokees, and then President Jackson ignored the ruling. So I'm right, even though this is the system, I'm going to go with what I want, which the selfish behavior woven in its extremes is so loud here. There's also the sprinkle in of a lot of wars. The Black Hawk War was in 1832. I looked at even the world history, and there is so much war happening in this entire time frame. The Force Bill expands presidential powers happened in 1833.
Probably after we ignored.
Force Bill already Aries. I didn't even read into it. And also just like, I'm the president, I get to be right. Like that, just felt very Aries to me. The first revolver is invented in 1836, and I need to have my weapons, and I am right. Energy continues. We also had the Trail of Tears, which is the most horrific thing in history to go into. That happened in 1838. Absolutely horrific, and it was so disgusting that people took like their own wants and needs over what would eventually be the mirror of justice and fairness and the Pluto Libra of like just completely moving people away from their homes so you could establish what you wanted on land that you were claiming as your own.
Yeah, you said wants and needs, and I feel like there was a far less need there than just I want this land, it's mine.
Absolutely, yeah.
All of this leading up to, before we shift into the second half of what was going on during Pluto Aries 2, like tells like lots of impulsive, unnecessary violence.
Yeah.
Like this is, I can see why America has this like do first, think later culture if this is, the early days.
Yeah. In 1849, we had the California Gold Rush, which also definitely so much greed that happened there. There was a lot of taking advantage of the Alaskan indigenous stuff I learned within that time frame too. It was just the gold rush, and I want to have what I have. Exploiting some of the stuff of Earth was very big there too. Then we had the Compromise of 1850 that included the Fugitive Slave Act that was passed. This is just more congressional stuff that was going down. 1852, we saw this in the world's history, and we thought it was very interesting that the British opened its first public toilets for women. So like finally getting a chance to
it took this long.
Be a human towards the grand finale of Pluto Aries. And we had the first experimental fire engine tested. Fire engine gave very Aries. That was at the very final grand finale of Pluto Aries. And then Wells Fargo was created right there at the end before it moved into Taurus. And it was right there on the cusp, which we were also kind of laughing at the fact that Wells Fargo
during Pluto Capricorn,
like all its mirror crash,
which is its second square.
Yeah,
second squares are a lot harder than those first squares because you've had more time to learn more shit.
And they were literally known for lying to everybody and being selfish. Hilarious. Not hilarious, but
but the astrology.
And so the major themes that I see as a takeaway, which just like hold to me, is there was also the establishment of so many states. I did not put all the dates down, but so many states within the Pluto Aries became official beginnings, so they kind of got their own initiation.
A solid first half, because I think in Taurus is when they did the 38 state revamp.
Yeah.
So at least the solid first 25-ish or more.
Which, yeah, the new beginnings and kind of setting its own terrain, sets the tone. Obviously, huge themes of selfish behavior, me first energy. I see a lot of war and weapons themes and its extremes happen. And then, there's a lot of greed and money, and that falls into the selfishness too, but I could definitely see themes of that within it. And then, in some ways, people are taking initiative to restart for themselves. But yes, as you said, it held a lot of impulsiveness and not a lot of consideration for other people. That is the Pluto Aries, which it's definitely really good to listen to our Pluto Libra talk, being its first mirror, because I think a lot of things started cracking that were initially really selfish here, and then when Pluto went into Libra, that mirror had to be established.
That fairness, balance,
started
to scream louder.
Yeah.
Pluto and Taurus. I'm kind of excited for this one. The astrology is here too. Really well. So Pluto and Taurus started in 1852 and went until 1884. We will not have Pluto and Taurus again until 2097 to 2129. So we got a little ways to go, to say the least. Sorry, I'm holding the weight of 100 years from now. It will be Pluto Taurus. Okay, so speaking to the themes of Taurus before we dive into the history with you all, Taurus is our second sign on the zodiac. It's our first fixed sign. So we have Earth mixed with I don't move. I
hold form.
I'm gonna hold form in the most way. It's a much slower sign than Aries. Aries has that fire fuel. Taurus, full break stop, it's a rock. It revolves around our material world, our leisurely comforts and security. Any extra add?
No, so let's dive into the history, which I will say, as Pluto Scorpios, Pluto Taurus is our mirror of some of the energy.
It's some of the balance we need to find again.
And so it was very fascinating to read through. So right off at the very beginning, we had Vi had to write this one, and it's very funny. So we had someone discover how fast a message travels along a nerve, measuring the speed of transmission to a frog nerve cell.
I just feel like nervous system discovery feels Taurus to me. I feel like that's disrupting my nervous system.
They like the calm, how fast.
1852 walked, so we can run today.
We laughed out loud to so many Taurus ones.
They feel very on the nose.
It was just funny. 1852, the brown paper bag's invented. And if you know a Taurus, they love to pack a snacky. This was the first way to pack a snacky, and I think it really held strong.
Speaking of snackies, potato chips were also invented in 1852 to add to your snacky baggie.
Yes, and you gotta have a snack as a Taurus. It's essential. The elevator was also invented, which facilitated the development of skyscrapers, and we thought it was very funny. Taurus has so much efficiency. They said, we cannot walk up all of this. What's the way we can do it? I will not
walk up all of those.
Efficiency. In 1856, we had a railway bridge created, spanning to the Mississippi. This was
so now trains are being able to go over water in a way they haven't before.
Gotta love that. Making it efficient.
In 1861, the first recognized fossil was discovered. Probably because we were digging so many canals in this time too. I didn't really put any date specific ones, but we did a lot of going across the sea type things. We have the train bridge, like Jen already said. We were digging a lot of canals. It's probably where we found the fossil.
Earth. We also saw in 1865, the 13th Amendment abolished slavery. So that was a huge progress.
Good job, Taurus.
Good job, Pluto Taurus. that definitely started, you know, things heading in a better direction.
The first color projector was also in 1861. I just feel like it really gave an extra revamp to the picture movies for the Taurus. I know Taurus loves a pop culture moment, so of course it would be Pluto Taurus to bring color film into the industry.
They also getting those senses enhanced, you know.
Yeah.
They love those senses. And then Charles Darwin did a lot of writing during this time. There was a lot of the bigger pieces of his work that was created.
A ton of scientific research happening in this time. I didn't write it all down because it was like very niche and nerdy, but also there's a few key points that I do remember as like key scientific knowledge nowadays, or like the basics were being discovered.
Yeah. We had the first electric tram in New York City, 1874. Don't hurt your feet. Ride a tram.
I'm tired. I want to be cozy with my snacky baggie and my chips.
Yep. And then, as we said, 1877, the U.S. flag was redone with 38 stars. In 1880, we had the first automated rolling cigarette machine, which was made because someone ran a campaign for cigarettes. It was one of the cigarette companies was like, I'll give you a prize if you can make an automatic cigarette rolling machine, and someone did it. Taurus loves when there is going to be a reward for their effort.
A little incentive, even a coupon. That's not really a coupon, but it's a little bit of coupon.
The Red Cross was created in 1881 in Taurus time frame, so I loved that one. The Brooklyn Bridge became open in 1883.
Another efficiency of travel.
And then right as Taurus and Gemini were on the brink of shifting, we got the phases of chromosomal division demonstrated, which also just felt very Taurus and Gemini.
Like sitting, holding hands as Pluto transitions. By the way, this is how cells do their thing. Thank you. I'm gonna go divide and conquer.
So the main themes that we can kind of see within that are there was so much efficiency upgrades. There was a lot of using material resources to be able to create something that was more efficient, but also just like new inventions and things being like used to create something. There was also a lot of research expansion, which you have to keep in mind that Pluto Taurus, that mirrors Pluto Scorpio. Scorpio goes so deep into research. So there is a lot of links between the two and really looking into something and figuring out how to best utilize the research and what comes forward. Taurus does it in a very different way sometimes than Scorpio, but they bridge it in that same way. Yeah, so that is some of the Pluto Aries, Pluto Taurus, just looking through history. If you have more thoughts or you know some information about a family member as you look through your own kind of Pluto generational lineage,
or you're just a history nerd and you have more things to contribute,
we would love to hear. And we will definitely keep continuing on this series as we move through all the signs. If you haven't watched our previous episodes, please check them out and support them. We are absolutely loving to do this series and keep diving into these different signs. You can learn more below, and we will see you in our next episode.
Bye.